Hello everyone, welcome back to Date Restricted. And in this video, I'm basically going to give you more or less an introduction to just what this channel is all about and just exactly what I'm trying to do here by giving my opinion and reacting to just exactly what's going on right now in the dating market, in the sexual dynamics between men and women, and just exactly why all of this craziness regarding relationships in the West as we know it is still a prevalent talking point even today in 2024. More specifically, as a guy, why it's become somewhat of a losing game to really just consistently serially date over here in the West when you've got the kinds of expectations that are floating around and about out there from the ladies that has essentially made the dating market a very volatile place for guys in general. And there are a number of factors for why things have gotten to this point in this modern age of dating. Whether it be increasing expectations that are very unlikely to be met unless by a very minuscule percentage of people in the world, much less guys. Whether it be evaluating the traits of the people that are out there right now and hearing and listening from both sides, men and women, on just what they want and what they think will be the best starting foundations for a long-lasting and successful marriage, relationship, partnership, whatever you want to call it. As you already might know at this point, there's been a ginormous discord between men and women, between both sides, as to what each really and truly wants out of a successful relationship, along with the traits of what each one should possess in order to have a successful relationship. And of course, over the years, thanks to the rise of modern day feminism, a lot of the public point of view has been swayed in the sense of in the westernized to try and really just see things from the female point of view, and as such men's ideologies and a lot of men's wants, desires, and a lot of male standards have not exactly been given a fair shot to really have the time to be heard, voiced, or for that matter championed, up until the likes of guys like, of course, as a lot of people know, TATE, you know who I'm talking about, until Kevin Samuels came along with a few others like Rollo Tomasi, and you finally heard men's thoughts given the proper, and the voice being given proper volume to really be heard in the mainstream, and it has gone mainstream and been characterized as what we now know as the red pill. And whether you want to consider, ideologies that were of how men's preferences and standards have now begun to take the spotlight or such that it all gets considered red pill, that's your prerogative to judge. If you want to see it that way, then by all means. But in the sense of just giving male preferences, especially over here in the West, the time of day to really just to be heard and to essentially not be demonized to the degree of being taken out of context. Truth be told, it's very difficult for guys to really find what they're looking for in Western civilization. As such, guys, as has been determined before, are very good deductive problem solvers and critical thinkers, in the sense that if we can't find what we're looking for by way of acting as we are, or whatever the case may seem in that regard, we'll find it elsewhere or act another way that a lot of the ladies prefer in order to get the results we're looking for. But in the sense of me understanding full well in my own perspective that that's not how I want to do things, and that that's not exactly a thought that's really crossed my mind for long run implications, because all of that has a tendency to come back up to the surface at some point. because I've always been a supporter of the fact that leopards just don't change their spots. For me, I've had the opportunity and I've had the blessed enough of a life to see different cultures, whether it be domestically or in other countries, see just exactly what kind of beautiful opportunities lie elsewhere, become successful, of course, in my home country, and see what kinds of prospects lie abroad. And in doing so, it's become painfully evident that there are indeed other ways to find what you're looking for as a bachelor or as any kind of a human being that's trying to find the connection elsewhere. The most notable method of all this, as you might have surmised, is the newly crowned phenomenon from a couple of years ago that still goes on today in passport bros. You've probably seen that prevalent in some of my previous videos as well when I've traveled abroad, especially in Latin America. And as such, I can tell you right now that things are very different over in those parts of the world, and it is indeed something that's worth exploring for any person that has the means and the time to make their way outside to see a whole different perspective on life, opposed to what you've probably been raised to believe exists here in the West. And of course, there has been opposition to folks going overseas in the prospects of trying to find a significant other or find somebody in general, or even just getting away from their usual borders altogether, as there's always going to be opposition from folks that really don't want to see any breaking of the status quo. But with things being what they are here, with relationships essentially being more or less one-sided, and one-sided especially away from the guys, it's just a very important thing to note that there are more options out there in order to find who you're trying to find than what you think you're left with here in the USA or in the West in general. And even though this conversation has been raging on for years, it's important to consistently note this because of the fact that a lot of guys still think that in spite of how much this conversation's been going on, that their options are limited and that they don't think that there is much of a reason for them to leave their comfort zone, if you will. I mean, I can tell you right now, there is a reason. You can go. You can make it happen. It's just a matter of how badly you want it and just how much you can actually prioritize what makes you happy and what actually you're willing to put aside in order to just throw a dart on the map and really just make something happen. And fellas, do yourself a favor and don't pay any mind or attention to any of the shaming language or any of the nasty tactics that a lot of ladies or even a lot of guys are gonna throw your way in doing so. Alright, if you don't know what shaming language is, we're gonna get to that in this channel in future videos. But of course, the things like shame, insults, guilt, need to be right, assault, lies, all that good stuff, we're gonna get to all of those topics later. But don't let any of that nonsense stop you from going out and seeing new things, taking in new cultures, taking in something that you've never had the opportunity to take in before, and just really just go in with an open mind. Leave the American in America. That's probably the best thing I can tell you as far as going and experiencing other cultures, and really just take in that you are now seeing the world with a different set of eyes, with a new momentous opportunity to really broaden some horizons. As a guy, I've completely and totally opted out from dating in the West, but I have not opted out from being around women by any stretch of the imagination, and my time overseas definitely taught me that that was a good decision, because what we were raised to believe exists over here in the West is not something that's typical elsewhere, as I discovered in my overseas travels so far. I do plan on traveling well outside of the western borders, especially of the United States, and going to other countries as well, now that I've had the opportunity to see what I've seen in my first few excursions thus far. But by the same token, it was still something to note that I had to get over some internalized questions that I had for myself as to what I was doing, who I was looking for, how much I'm going to like the culture, just putting myself around the culture. But then all of that went away when I was just out and about, just walking around, talk to people, immerse yourself in what's there, and just essentially getting you out of your comfort zone well enough to where all of those internalized anxieties you might have, they just go away. And that's crazy for me to even say in the first place, because I'm not exactly what anyone would consider an anxious person. If there's something that I think that needs to be done or that I want to do, I generally find the most efficient way to make it happen as best as I possibly can, and I just put myself out there to just do it in the first place. And that served me very well going overseas, and that's also served me very well in seeing that there's more to life than what we've been taught to accept over here in these parts. So overall, just wanted to give that introduction to just exactly who I am and exactly why I think it's a good idea to restrict dates. I look forward to future videos. I look forward to giving my reactions to some of the craziness that's out there right now and giving my perspective in general on just why it's a good idea to be very, very, very intelligent as a bachelor in order to make the right moves necessary to set yourself up for the best possible situation before you rush in and do something that you might regret. And having all your options, having all of that information at your disposal ahead of making a final decision is one of the greatest kinds of gifts that anybody that's in any kind of a position to teach can grant to somebody that might need it in the first place. Because knowledge of any kind, it's best to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And I'm happy to do whatever part I can in terms of relaying whatever perspective that I can that might wind up putting a few tools or so inside of your box, so to speak. So I look forward to future creation. I'm glad for the folks that have started out in supporting and subbing to the channel so far, and I look forward to putting a lot more out there for everybody to enjoy. Take care.